11. Matthew Crowder. One day in 2016, a New Mexico man named Matthew Crowder saw an attractive employee working at a consignment shop in Albuquerque. He gave her his business cards in case she was interested in a date. He then proceeded to steal a necklace from the store within view of a surveillance camera. To say that Crowder made it easy for law enforcement to identify him would be an understatement. The consignment shop's owner typed the name from his business card into a Facebook search, and his profile appeared right away. Within a few hours of the theft, Crowder bragged about the stolen necklace and other ill-gotten items in a series of public posts. The post featuring the necklace stated, "Pampering my perfectly porcelain princess with the gorgeous curves today. Raided a thrift store today for this necklace. I adore you, Emily." Needless to say, Crowder was soon arrested. At the time, he also had 3 outstanding warrants for shoplifting and threats in various parts of the state. In a statement issued to KOB News after the suspect's arrest, Public Information Officer Simon Drobick seemed incredulous. "This guy's a goofball. I can't believe it," he said, adding, "Well, I guess I can believe it. These guys are dumb." Drobick further cautioned the public to know that if they saw the guy in the surveillance footage in their store, he's probably there to rip them off. 10. Jake Kevin Watts. 23-year-old Jake Kevin Watts was on probation with a suspended license in 2017 when he stupidly drove himself to a police station in Queensland, Australia for his regularly scheduled check-in. He hid the car keys in a nearby bush, but a dutiful citizen saw him acting suspicious and retrieved the keys after he went inside the building. The Good Samaritan handed the keys over to the police, who immediately went and looked inside the car. In it, they found a sizable stash of methamphetamine and steroids, along with a cache of weapons including brass knuckles and at least 2 guns. The judge overseeing the case readily admitted in court that the circumstances of Watts' arrest would be comical if it wasn't so serious. But the defendant's lawyer, Tom Pauly, seemed to take the case with utmost seriousness, describing how his client became addicted to meth after doing it just once. His life proceeded to spiral out of control. He soon began selling drugs to support his habit. The Morning Bulletin pointed out that Watts turned down offers of help numerous times from family, friends, and probation officers. In the meantime, he lost his job. Watts was sentenced to 2 years in prison and was also banned from driving for 2 years. 9. Hannah Sabata. Most people who rob banks keep as low of a profile as possible, but not Hannah Sabata. In 2012, the 19-year-old posted a bizarre YouTube video bragging about how she had just robbed a bank in Nebraska at gunpoint. In a series of captions, she said she made off with around $6,000 and even recounted how she carried out the crime with a gun, a pillowcase, and a note demanding money, describing the experience as the best day of her life. Sabata also claimed she stole a car, but her glory was short-lived, and you can probably guess what happened next. The video garnered thousands of views, viewers alerted law enforcement, and they arrested the young woman. When they arrived to pick Sabata up, she was reportedly wearing a similar outfit to the one she committed the robbery in. Authorities recovered all but around $30 of the stolen money, according to York County Sheriff Dale Radcliffe, and Sabata was handed a stiff sentence of 10 to 20 years in prison. 8. Shannon Sapila. When 20-year-old Shannon Sapila began suspecting her best gal pal of hooking up with her ex-boyfriend in 2015, she made her disapproval known by keying the word "whore" into the young woman's car. Except she forgot the H and called her a "war" instead. Sapila also allegedly keyed her ex's car and slashed the tires of both vehicles. Afterward, her ex claimed that he was bombarded by text messages from the scorned woman, hinting that she was responsible for the vandalism. But Sapila sang a different tune when she was questioned by the police and outright denied the act. She was initially let go without any charges being pressed. Apparently thinking she had just gotten away with her devilish deed, she stopped and snapped a selfie on her way out of the police station. Then posted it on social media along with the caption, "Stamford police have nothing on me." But as she would soon learn, she was wrong. Not long after her first round of questioning, Sapila was charged with criminal mischief and taken into custody. She posted bail and continued referencing the incident in her social media posts, but soon started complaining about the unwanted attention she was getting after the story went viral. 7. Absent-minded substitute angers an entire school. A substitute teacher, who the press was kind enough not to name, was filling in at a school in Queens, New York in 2016 when she realized her cell phone was missing. It turned out into a big deal fast, and several staff members were accused of putting a classroom into a lockdown type of situation, while they rummaged through the students' belongings and subjected the kids to the kind of interrogations that are usually reserved for hardened criminal suspects. At least one boy was in tears after being searched and accused repeatedly, according to a lawsuit filed by understandably outraged parents. The suit also alleged that when the boy refused to pony up the phone or admit to taking it, employees yanked his little brother out of a second-grade classroom and tried getting him to admit that his brother had stolen the phone and given it to him. Not only is this kind of treatment completely excessive, traumatizing, and unnecessary, the substitute eventually realized that she had left her phone in her car. Nobody stole anything from her, despite the barrage of accusatory treatment the staff was accused of subjecting the students to, which wouldn't have been okay even if someone had stolen something. After all, they're kids. An employee reportedly brought Chinese food for the class as an "I'm sorry I falsely accused you and left you emotionally scarred" gift. But it didn't stop the kids from telling their parents what happened, and they took their concerns to the court. 6. Cody Connor. Cheryl Hunter was working at an adult store in DeBary, Florida in 2012 when a young man burst through the door with a gun and demanded money. Instead of complying, Hunter asked the robber why he needed the cash. He mentioned that he needed it, and Hunter persuaded him to call off the robbery and apply for a job at the lingerie store instead. Cody Connor put down his real name on the application, making it incredibly easy for the police to track him down. By the time they caught up with him, he had ditched the weapon, but they still had plenty of evidence to arrest him on. And while it's certainly sad that he was struggling and became desperate enough to try committing a robbery, there are penalties to breaking the law and putting other people in danger. In court, Connor's lawyers depicted him as a mentally ill addict who needed help more than punishment. The prosecution, on the other hand, rejected the argument that Connor was a troubled boy who needed guidance and pointed out how he had gotten in trouble with alarming regularity throughout his life. In all fairness, the young man seemed genuinely remorseful, but the court found that there was a lack of evidence to prove the defendant's calls for compassion based on mental health, and Connor was sentenced to 10 years in prison. 5. Karen Desberg. A 67-year-old disabled veteran was shopping at a Publix supermarket in Port St. Lucie, Florida in 2017 when he accidentally left his wallet at a cash register. The customer behind him saw it happen, but instead of chasing after him to return the wallet, she slipped it into her purse. Police posted a surveillance image of the suspect in hopes that someone could identify her, and the public was quick to help out. When officers questioned Karen Desberg about the incident, she claimed that she had planned to run after the customer and give the wallet back. When she went to look for him, she couldn't find him. But the security footage told a much different story. According to an arrest report, when law enforcement confronted Karen about how the act looked deliberate, she still tried to blame what she called an airhead moment for the theft. Police stuck to their belief that the suspect had plenty of time to catch up with the victim and do the right thing, but actively chose not to. Desberg was charged with theft. 4. Jayana Webb. You may have known a person or two who foolishly claimed that they were good at driving drunk. Jayana Webb was allegedly that person, only to have her claims backfire on her in one of the worst ways imaginable. She bragged on Twitter in early 2021 about having skills when she sloshed behind the wheel, writing, "If you ask me, I'm the best driver ever." But like anyone else who senselessly brags about irresponsible recklessness that puts others' lives in danger, it turned out that Webb wasn't as good at driving drunk as she thought. Just a few months after the tweet appeared, she slammed into 2 police officers and a civilian who were walking along Interstate 95 in Philadelphia while tending to a call. The 3 victims were struck so hard that they went flying across the median into the lanes going in the opposite direction. Troopers Martin Mack and Brandon Siska, and the civilian they were assisting, Reyes Rivera Oliveras, were all pronounced dead at the scene. Webb's blood alcohol level tested at 0.16, twice the legal limit for driving in Pennsylvania. She was charged with 13 crimes, including third-degree murder, DUI, homicide by vehicle while driving under the influence, second-degree manslaughter of a law enforcement officer, involuntary manslaughter, reckless endangerment, and more. The murder charge was dismissed by a judge several months later, only to be reinstated by another judge. It's a complicated case, and it appears to be far from over, as Webb's attorney fights to mitigate the damage to the young offender's future, while the prosecution seems determined on setting the example that killing police, even by accident, will not be tolerated. 3. Airheads on Air Mattresses. During a bout of heavy rain in Queensland, Australia in 2010, a trio of young men decided it would be a good idea to ride down the overflowing Bremer River on air mattresses. This was extremely dangerous, especially considering the severity of the weather. When people saw the teens boarding their makeshift rafts, they were quick to dial the police. The group made it about 9 miles, 15 kilometers downstream. About halfway to their goal of traveling 18 miles, 30 kilometers, before law enforcement caught up to them. By then, they had been on the water for over 2 hours and issued appearance tickets for being public nuisances. The incident was especially maddening because there were people who were genuinely stranded in the water. And who were in urgent need of rescuing. Police were less than thrilled to divert needed resources to a couple of knuckleheads who chose to put themselves in danger. And their frustrations grew as they encountered other people who needlessly entered the floodwaters. 2. Katya Chapel. In 2012, during the early morning hours of Thanksgiving Day, 2 women were fatally shot while sitting in a car outside a Target store in Cleveland, Ohio. One of the victims survived, but unfortunately, 29-year-old Dominique Johnson died from her injuries. The shooter fled the scene and went on the run, but it didn't take long for law enforcement to identify Katya Chapel as their primary suspect. She allegedly not only took credit for the crime on social media, but also bragged about it. Chapel was apprehended by U.S. Marshals following a manhunt that dragged on for more than a month. Authorities charged her with 2 counts of murder, 1 count of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, 1 count of tampering with evidence, and 1 count of carrying concealed weapons. Chapel's attorney reportedly argued that his client acted in self-defense. During a bail hearing early on in her case, Chapel tried to interject and say something, all too aware of her self-incriminating social media posts, and reminded her that the prosecution would likely use anything she said against her. 1. Yoni Jones. Some criminals seem to think that if they act like a security camera isn't there, it won't capture footage of them. That seemed to be the case when 3 women shoplifted from a beauty supply store in Broward County, Florida, one day in 2021. Surveillance video of the botched theft shows the trio grabbing numerous items. One of the women has a child on her hip, while the other is visibly pregnant. When confronted by an employee, one of the suspects blasted pepper spray in the worker's face. But there was no changing the fact that they were on camera, and it wasn't long before the alleged pepper sprayer, Ione Jones, was in custody. In addition to the 15 charges she was already facing for other cases, she was hit with 1 count of robbery with a weapon. And to make matters even more comical, the wig she wore in her mugshot was stolen from the store. Thanks for watching. Would you rather go viral for a hugely embarrassing and immature but forgivable public meltdown that was caught on camera when you were having a really bad day, or quietly deal with a somewhat serious criminal charge that never makes the news but could potentially affect your future job prospects? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.